Greetings, YouTube. The doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And we're going to start by going through some of the spells, and particularly the ones that are major changes that come out of the 2024 Player's Handbook. The first one, we're not going to do these in order. Maybe we'll do them in order, but the first one I want to start out with is True Strike, because this is one of the spells that really changed, and it is going to now change the game completely the way that it was changed from the previous Legacy version, now that they're calling it. So up on the screen right now, I've got the Legacy version. We did review this about a year ago. I did a set of videos reviewing every single spell in the D&D Beyond collection, so that's all the books, excluding many of the non-Wizards of the Coast books. And when we came to True Strike, we gave this spell an F. It was horrible. It was an absolutely terrible spell. So, the old True Strike was a cantrip. It had a casting time of 1 action. It had a massive range of 30 feet. It only lasted for a round. And it required concentration, which was terrible. So you point a finger at a target in range. Your magic grants you a brief insight into the target's defenses. On your next turn, you gain advantage on your first attack roll against the target, provided the spell hasn't ended, provided you haven't lost concentration in the interim. So there are all kinds of terrible things about this spell. We're not going to revisit that, but I just want to set this up, and it was also usable by Bards, Sorcerers, Warlocks, and Wizards. So now let's take a look at the new True Strike. Here's the new True Strike from the 2024 Player's Handbook. It's still a cantrip, has 1 action casting time. It is not concentration. It has a range of self, somatic, and material component, which is a weapon, which you have proficiency with, and that is worth at least 1 copper piece, which is, I think, all weapons. I think that what they're saying is that you can't pick a stick up and just use, a log or something. Duration instantaneous. It's still divination. There's no saving throw. It does radiant damage, which is a big thing. So, guided by and it's usable by Bards, Sorcerers, Warlocks, Wizards, Bards. I don't know why they put Bards in here. Sorcerers, Warlocks, Wizards. They repeated that twice. I don't know why that's repeated twice, but it is usable by Bard squared, Sorcerer squared, Warlock squared, and Wizard squared. Okay. So, guided by a flash of magical insight, you make 1 attack with a weapon used in the spell's casting. And it doesn't say melee weapon, it just says weapon. That's an important factor. The attack uses your spell casting ability for the attack and damage rolls instead of using strength or dexterity. If the attack deals damage, it can be radiant damage or the weapon's normal damage type, your choice. And then it gets upgraded like almost all cantrips do. So, whether you deal radiant damage or the weapon's normal damage, the attack deals extra radiant damage when you reach levels 5, 11, and 17 for 1d6, 2d6, and 3d6 respectively. So, let's unpack this a little bit. So, this now gives you the option of being able to do magic damage at first level. That's a big one, because the ability to do magic damage doesn't really come quickly. It comes at later levels, like when you get your +1 weapon or things like that. With a weapon, magic damage with a weapon. So it allows you to do magic damage. A couple of big ones in here is because it says weapon and not melee weapon. It can be used with a melee weapon, such as a long sword, or it can be used with a ranged weapon, such as a hand crossbow or a crossbow. This spell is going to get nuts with crossbow expert. And then it uses your spell casting modifier. So if you're a bard and you're using this spell, then, which is on your list, you can use it, then it's using charisma. Sorcerer, it uses charisma. Warlock, it uses charisma. Wizard, it uses intelligence. So that's a big one. Now, there are a lot of other classes that are going to be able to pick this up. Now, martial characters, I've seen some people say that martial characters should be taking this spell, but this still uses the magic action. So that's your action, and it's not necessarily the attack action. So there still is that kind of limitation. That was always a limitation that was put on spells like Booming Blade, where you could use Booming Blade and make an attack with a weapon, but when you did that, you used a spell action and not an attack action. So you weren't getting multiple attacks. So if you're a fighter, and particularly if you're an Eldritch Knight who could be getting multiple attacks, then if you use your action to cast this spell, then that's it. That's what you're doing. However, there are some classes, and we're going to go through those, that can weave this spell into multiple attacks, which is really important. So the other biggie with this is the spellcasting modifier is attack and damage rolls, which means that if you're using a longsword, which does a d8, and you have an intelligence of 18, at first, let's say you have an intelligence of 17. So that's a d8 plus 3. On average, that is going to be 7 points of damage. And a firebolt, for instance, is going to do 5.5. So it does a little bit more damage. And it has essentially the same chance to hit. So, and you could use that with either a ranged weapon or a melee weapon. So those are big things to point out with this. And then lastly, it scales. So once you hit 5th level, you're doing an extra d6 of damage with either a ranged or melee weapon, which I think is pretty good. So comparable to other things like Green Flame Blade, which you hit a different creature, and at 5th, the attack does an extra d8. So this is a little bit better at 5th than it is. But again, this one uses a melee weapon attack. So you don't get to add your spellcasting modifier to that. You add whatever, if it's a melee weapon that uses strength, then you're going to be using your strength and your dex. And as a spellcaster, you don't really want to be splitting a lot of your points in, or however you do your attributes, but between like dex and intelligence or dex and charisma, anything like that. So let's look at some classes now that could go along with this. Of course, there's the Bladesinger, which is still around because we've already been told that we can blend legacy material or 2014 to 2024 material with the 2024 Player's Handbook. So if you are a Bladesinger now, you don't get to be a Bladesinger at 2nd level. You get to be a Bladesinger at 3rd level. But Bladesingers get this. They get a couple of things. One, they get proficiency with light armor, and then you get a proficiency with one type of one-handed melee weapon of your choice. In addition, you get an extra attack at 6th level, and we're not going to go. I've gone over Blade Song before, so we're not going to talk about all the stuff that happens with the Blade Song. But the important thing is that you have proficiency with a one-handed melee weapon of your choice, and the second one is you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Moreover, you can cast one of your cantrips in place of those attacks. So you can do things like cast Green Flame Blade, or you can cast Booming Blade, or you can cast True Strike as one of those. So you get your one attack. Now, you are going to probably have to have a high dex or high strength for that. But you do get your one attack, and then you get your True Strike attack with your intelligence. Now, another class that I'm going to pull up is the Valor, College of Valor Bard. So they get their combat inspiration, and this is from the 2024 PHB. So this is one of the classes that's in there that you get at 3rd level. You get the martial training, which means you get proficiency with martial weapons and training with medium armor and shields. In addition, you can use a simple or martial weapon as a spellcasting focus. Okay, this is the big one right here, extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action. In addition, you can cast one of your cantrips that has a casting time of an action. There it is, one action, in place of one of those attacks. So you can attack with one, just as an attack, and then you can substitute that with one of your cantrips, which could be True Strike again. So, and it doesn't say that, in addition, so you attack twice when you take the attack action. Doesn't say it has to be a melee weapon. It just says it has to be a weapon. So you could do this with a ranged attack. And you have proficiency with martial weapons, not martial melee weapons, but martial weapons. Okay. Battle magic, which the one thing I don't like about this is they don't say when you get this stuff. So subclass feature at 14th level, subclass feature at 16th. So at 14th level would be the next time you get that's when you get battle magic. After you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can make one attack with a weapon, not a melee weapon, but a weapon as a bonus action. So you take the attack action, and you use your first attack in the attack action to just do an attack. Then you substitute your second attack with True Strike or Booming Blade or whatever. But that is now a cantrip that's a spell that has a casting time of an action, and then you can use your bonus action to make another attack. So there's a good one. That's a good combo right there. Rogues obviously are great for this, and I think the Arcane Trickster, because they did make some changes to the Arcane Trickster, are good for this one as well. Rogues, a biggie with the rogues is they do get weapon masteries now. And the Arcane Trickster, 3 cantrips, Mage Hand, and 2 other cantrips your choice from the Wizard spell list. And True Strike can be one of those. And so now you've got magic damage that you can do, and you can use your spellcasting modifier if you want for that. And it does extra damage as you get higher level. So that's a great thing about that is you can use this, and you can combine that on top of weapon mastery for the weapons that the rogue can use, which are simple weapons and martial weapons that have the finesse or light property, such as a rapier or a short sword or something like that. So all in all, I think this spell is pretty good. It's a big improvement over that. Now, would I give it an A+? No. We're not going to give it an A+. Because it seems like it is going to lose some of its utility over time. And when you hit that 5th level, there are pluses and minuses to this spell. So when you hit that level where all of the cantrips get bumped, so compared to, say, Booming Blade, which we've got right here, at 5th level, Booming Blade is going to do an extra D8 thunder damage to the target on a hit. But this, again, uses a melee attack. Okay, so it's limited in that you have to use a melee attack, and it does an extra D8. But with the melee attack, it doesn't use your spellcasting. Again, if you're a Bladesinger, then you should have a really high intelligence because you're going to be casting a bunch of spells. So True Strike is different in that aspect that it uses your spellcasting modifier, and it can be used on a ranged or melee weapon, so it's not limited to that. So there are pros and cons. It's very situational. when you get to that particular level on what you would want to use or what you would not want to use. All right, that is what I got for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.